As a fan, as a pundit, you just can't wait to watch the game.
We're dealing with pure quality on both sides.
It looks sharp, it looks strong, great squad, great manager.
That's a strike.
Take a lot of stopping.
The FA Cup final, Chelsea versus Liverpool, Saturday the 14th of May, live on ITV and ITV Hub.
Hello once again. Vote 22 is the name of the programme. It's our running commentary on the election results to the Assembly this Friday afternoon. Alex Kay and Anna Mercer is with here as Tracy McGee. And just want to reference the fact that Jeffrey Donaldson has been returned as the new MLA for Lagan Valley on the first count, 12,626 votes. Here's what he has to say.
Unionist divisions, despite the fact that the common ground we share, whether it is in our passionate belief in the Union as the best way forward for everyone in Northern Ireland, or our opposition to the Irish Sea border and the protocol, I have called consistently in this election for greater Unionist cooperation. And I think that is what Unionist voters right across Northern Ireland want to see. And I think one of the lessons emerging from this election will be the harm that divisions within unionism does to our ability to win elections. But let's see what the final outcome is. It's all to play for. The DUP is very much in the game at the moment, and we're looking out for the results in other constituencies.
If you end up as the second place party, I mean, will you take the position of Deputy First Minister? Because people will be looking to you today to make that decision.
Well, I think, Stephen, we're way ahead of ourselves. The first thing we need to do is see the outcome of the election. I have made clear that we need the government to take decisive action on the protocol. Words are not enough. We need to see what the government are going to do to address the issues that are and the problems created by the Irish Sea border. That border is unacceptable, and until the government acts decisively, my position remains that which I held when I took the decision back at the beginning of February to withdraw the First Minister. And it is time for the government to act. This has dragged on for far too long. The EU keep kicking the can down the road. Meanwhile, our economy suffers, our political stability.
The election result.
Well, there isn't an election result yet, Stephen. So let's see what the outcome is. And then our party officers will meet to consider the way forward in terms of the outcome of the election. But I am very clear, my party is very clear, we need the long shadow of the protocol removed from the political institutions in Northern Ireland. It is creating untold harm to Northern Ireland, and it needs to be dealt with, and it must be dealt with. And the government need to hear that message very loud and clear. The EU need to hear that message loud and clear. Unionism does not support the protocol. There is not a consensus in Northern Ireland. It has to be dealt with, and until it is dealt with, then our position remains as it has been.
If your vote goes down across Northern Ireland, if you do lose seats, what message do you think that is sent to you as leader in your party?
That a divided unionism doesn't win elections. But we're not there yet, Stephen. It's all to play for. We're very much in the hunt for seats right across Northern Ireland. Let's see what the final outcome is.
And you see the surge here in the hall from Alliance. What do you think that message sends?
Well, the DUP vote in Lagan Valley has held up extremely well, I have to say. I think you need to look at the overall results here. This has been a good day for the DUP in Lagan Valley. Alliance will do well across Northern Ireland in various seats where transfers will help them to win seats at the fifth stage. And you know, that's for them a success. I accept and acknowledge that. But where are those votes coming from? It is evident to me they're coming from the SDLP and the Ulster Unionist Party, who are being squeezed.
Well, that's Sir Jeffrey Donaldson speaking live there just after being declared a winner in Lagan Valley. He topped the poll there, 12,626 first preference votes. Tracy McGee, he's putting a brave face on it, is he not?
Yes, and playing for time as well, very clearly. I mean, obviously, as these results are coming in, and it does seem to be, certainly at this early stage, that it is Sinn Féin's victory today. he has to come up with a plan, a policy, but he doesn't want to be announcing it today. So he has to find a way out of the mess he now finds himself in, because, as the point that was being made earlier, he is dependent on Boris Johnson doing something on the protocol. So he's not the master of his own destiny here. He very likely will end up in the second position. He hasn't got a good negotiating position.
And it's not even going to feature, the protocol will not feature in the Queen's speech, according to what the Secretary of State was saying the other night.
Well, what we're hearing is that we'll have some sort of very general announcement, something such as my government will take action to protect the Belfast Good Friday Agreement. Now, that is not enough, certainly not close to what was being suggested in the newspapers. Equally, though, it's so wide that it could give the government room if it has the political will to do so. I can tell you that the DUP are sore about this. Senior sources were telling me that government ministers were telling them only last week that they were going to take action on the protocol. So it's very hard to see this as any other than yet another double cross from the Conservative government.
Okay, we have a very fluid situation developing this afternoon. We're having declarations in a number of different counts. So what shall we do next? Will we go to what's happening in the count? We'll just stay with the commentators in the studio here this afternoon. So tell me more. Alex Kane, not a great day thus far for the DUP, is it?
Well, I think Jeffrey will know. All the DUP tally team is brilliant. They're as good as Sinn Féin's tally team. He probably knows exactly how many seats he's going to come with at the end of the day. And as Tracy said, he's playing the long game. He's hoping that just when they get into that last round of counts, that just a little nudge here, wink there, it'll just get him across and so on. But he has a huge problem, and that huge problem is that unionism, half of unionism doesn't seem to want him to be a Deputy First Minister, and his other problem is the protocol. I don't know how at some point, Paul, I think what is going to happen, if he knows the protocol isn't going to be resolved the way he wants it, and if he knows that the AFM isn't going to be resolved, unionism in the Assembly will have to make that choice between preserving the Assembly or letting it go, and that decision cannot be put off for much longer.
And Anna Mercer, what way will it go?
It's hard to know, but I think what it does tell us is that strength of feeling, which we weren't sure whether the anti-protocol sentiment would translate into votes, but when you look at potentially what the DUP and TUV vote is combined, it is there. So whether we like it or not, it does need addressed. I mean, Alex made the point earlier that it won't be addressed in the executive. That's the problem, and the DUP have backed themselves into a corner. We need to find a way out of this. We need to find a way forward. There's a cost of living crisis going on at the minute. I mean, if they're thinking that Sinn Féin were rewarded for abandoning government for 3 years in 2017, I think we're not looking at this properly, because in the general election they were punished for it. Their vote dropped by nearly 7%.
Okay, Anna, thank you very much indeed. Well, we're now able to talk live to Sir Geoffrey Donaldson, leader of the DUP, who's just been returned as MLA in Lagan Valley. First of all, Sir Geoffrey, congratulations on being returned. 12,626 votes. But the panel in the studio here have been saying you have backed yourself into a corner here over the protocol.
Well, hello, Paul, and thank you for your kind words. The DUP vote has held up extremely well here in Lagan Valley. Some 18,000 first preference votes. That's an incredible result in a PR election. And I'm looking forward to my colleague Paul Given being elected to the Assembly a little later in the process. My surplus votes will now be distributed. As in relation to the protocol, I have no doubt, having been out on doorsteps in every single constituency in Northern Ireland, that this is an issue for many people. It is contributing to the cost of living crisis. There's no doubt about that. And we need to have this addressed. It is harming our economy. It is casting a shadow over the political institutions.
So, Geoffrey, I hear what you're saying there, okay? But the other night, the Secretary of State, Brandon Lewis, indicated that the protocol is not going to appear in the Queen's speech. And, where are you in all of this? You have to convince the government of the day, surely, to do their job, but you haven't.
Sorry, Paul, there was some interference there on the line. I hope you can still hear me, can you?
Yes, I can, Geoffrey Donaldson. And what I'm trying to do is to say that, you will put a brave face on this, but the reality is that the Secretary of State, Brandon Lewis, has indicated that the protocol will not appear in the Queen's speech.
No, there was a loud bleep noise.
I'm sorry, Sir Geoffrey Donaldson. We'll have to leave it there for the moment. One final question. One just final point. Can you hear me now, Sir Geoffrey Donaldson? Can you hear me now, Geoffrey? He's not able to hear us at the moment, so that'll come back. But it is great difficulty. There is great difficulty, is there, at the end of the day, in how they're going to make government work in Northern Ireland and also to remove the protocol.
Well, I think Sir Geoffrey Donaldson faces a number of very difficult questions, and I'm not sure he has the answers, or if he has the answers, he's going to be prepared to tell us. Number one, will he go into government if his party comes in second place? Will he himself come back to Stormont in those circumstances? And thirdly, how does he plan to get government back if he's saying that he's waiting on an answer from the UK government on the protocol? These are all very important questions. He doesn't have the answers to all of them.
Well, we can get Sir Geoffrey Donaldson back. I understand you're hearing us now, Sir Geoffrey Donaldson, yes?
I am sorry, Paul, I lost the audio there. Yes, your question was about the Secretary of State's comments.
Yes, indeed, making the point that the protocol would not appear in the Queen's speech. So where are you then?
Well, I'm not sure that is the case, Paul. I understand there will be a section of the Queen's speech that will specifically address this issue in the context of the harm that the protocol is doing to the agreement and the political institutions. I don't think the government at this stage are going to come forward with a specific proposal, but I have spoken to the Secretary of State. I will be meeting him again on Monday, the day before the Queen's speech, and I will be making clear to him, no matter what the words are in the Queen's speech, it's action that we need. This has been dragging on now for months and months of interminable negotiations with the EU, and we've had absolutely no product from those negotiations.
And as well, Northern Ireland, it appears, has moved on to the extent that we could be looking at a First Minister in the form of Michelle O'Neill from Sinn Féin. That being the case, would you, as the leader of the DUP, in that case the second largest party, would you put forward to be the Deputy First Minister?
Well, Paul, we're running way ahead of ourselves. There are lots of
no, Sir Geoffrey. I don't think we are here. This is the scenario that is developing this Friday afternoon. Could you see yourself going there and being putting yourself forward as the Deputy First Minister?
Well, of course, we will respect the outcome of the election, Paul. But my position and my party's position remains unchanged. And that is that until the protocol issues are addressed, until the Irish Sea border is removed, we will not be entering the executive. Our ministers will remain in place, in post, as they have done over the last few months, to ensure that key
Sir Geoffrey, are you seriously saying to me that you wouldn't go back into government with the country in crisis unless you have word about the removal of the protocol? Are you saying that to me?
Paul, I'm seriously saying to you that I gave a commitment to the people of Northern Ireland in the election. If you're asking me now, after the election, to break that commitment, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to do that. My commitment was clear. I want the protocol sorted out. I sought a mandate for that, and we will pursue that. I want to see it. I'm not going to be like others, pretending there isn't a problem.
What does sorted out mean? What does sorted out mean here? What is the least that you would settle for?
I want to see an outcome where we can trade freely with the rest of the United Kingdom. The goods that are moving from Great Britain to Northern Ireland and staying within the United Kingdom internal market should not be subject to checks. And that's what the government stated they would do in the New Decade New Approach Agreement. They gave a commitment to protect Northern Ireland's place within the UK internal market. That was the basis upon which we re-entered the executive back at the beginning of 2020. The government has not honoured that commitment. Look, I recognise, Paul,
will you be going back
in our power to work with the other parties?
Yes. Will you go back to Stormont to make Stormont work then?
Yes, of course. I will sit down with the other parties. We have a lot to talk about. We need to agree a programme for government. We need to agree a 3-year budget. There's lots for us to do, Paul. But I am clear. The government should act quickly and decisively to deal with the difficulties the protocol have created. They recognise those difficulties. They've stated in their command paper way back last July, almost a year ago, they recognised the difficulties, but the problem is they haven't done anything about it. I need them to act because it is driving up the cost of living, it's harming our economy.
Our viewers here today need movement at Stormont. Will you nominate? It's a simple question.
Your viewers need movement at Stormont, and we need the Secretary of State and the government to deliver. As soon as they deliver, and the sooner the better, Paul.
But you know,
in the end, this
what
is
the government
in their
has
hands. I've
said.
made clear.
You know, you've been thrown under the bus here, Sir Geoffrey Donaldson, because the government is not giving you a commitment that they will actually introduce anything in the Queen's speech.
Of language? Well, Paul, I'm sorry. As a professional journalist, I don't think you need to use that kind of language because I don't think that is helpful to anyone. We haven't been thrown under the bus. We've stood before the electorate. We've put forward our position. We've made it clear. And I have said to you in an interview, so you should know this, Paul, from the interview I did on The View from Stormont, I made clear to you that we would not re-enter an executive until the protocol issues are being dealt with. And therefore, if you're asking me, Paul, to break my word, to go back on everything I said in the election campaign, well, I'm sorry, you're talking to the wrong man.
All right, then in that case,
I'm not going to do that,
in that case, let me put it to you like this. How long can this drift continue before we're in a situation where either we have direct rule or another election?
For as long as the government fails to do something. The government know what they need to do. The time now is for them to act. This is in their hands. I don't have the power myself. Or if I had, I would act immediately to remove the Irish Sea border. The people who can do that are the government at Westminster. They know the harm this is doing to Northern Ireland. They know it's driving up the cost of living. They know it's harming our economy. They know that the protocol casts a dark shadow over the political institutions.
I've heard you say all of this before, but what are you going to do next week? Are you going to be talking to Boris Johnson? Are you going to be talking to the European Union in order to try and get some way forward or some way out of this for you?
I am certainly going to be talking to the government, that's for sure. I want to know from the government what they're going to do. We will have the Queen's speech, but that in itself is words. We need action, and I want to see action. I recognise that people in Northern Ireland want to see a stable, devolved government, one that has strong foundations. That's what I want to deliver, Paul, but the protocol is undermining the political process.
You can only deliver that with the numbers. You can only deliver that with numbers. How many seats do you expect to come back with?
At this stage, it's too early to say, Paul. This will be tight in a number of constituencies, but reality is the DUP will be there. I think that we will still be in a very strong position, and I want to use that position to ensure that what we get is stable government in Northern Ireland. And the protocol is harming that stability. It needs to be dealt with, Paul. We can't go on pretending this isn't a problem.
But also it could mean that you would be in the running for the Deputy First Minister rather than First Minister. Are you up for that? If the protocol
well, as I've said,
if the protocol is sorted, okay, and the result hasn't gone your way, how long or how soon will it be before you nominate for Deputy First Minister?
Well, I think I've answered that question, Paul. I've said as soon as the protocol is dealt with, we will be ready to put our ministers into the executive. That is clear. I want to see proper functioning political institutions in
Michelle
Northern
O'Neill
Ireland.
as First Minister.
And therefore, we need,
again, First Minister.
You are prejudging the outcome of the election, so let's see what happens.
But with Michelle as First Minister, that's a question, not a statement.
Yes, and my answer is let's see what happens.
But it could be Michelle O'Neill as First Minister and Geoffrey Donaldson as Deputy First Minister. Is that a runner?
I haven't said that, Paul, because we don't know the outcome of the election. And we will meet as a party to consider the results, just as every other party does. We'll sit down with the other parties in due course to discuss a programme for government. We want to get agreement on that and on a 3-year budget. These are important issues. But fundamentally, Paul, we need to deal with the issues on the protocol. And I know you want to come back and ask these questions, but I'm focused on getting results. Solutions is what we need now, Paul. Set aside the personalities. It's solutions that we want. And I want to see a solution that provides stability for Northern Ireland, that helps our economy, and that ensures we can trade freely within our own country. That's what I want to get to. I will work with the other parties, of course, to ensure that we deliver good government for Northern Ireland. But good government means that we deal with the protocol.
Sir Geoffrey Donaldson, thank you very much indeed for talking to us this afternoon. I'm glad we got the sound issues sorted there. Tracy McGee, how close did Sir Geoffrey Donaldson come there to saying that he could and would do business with Michelle O'Neill?
I don't think at all. They asked the same question about 4 different ways. I don't think he got a straight answer out of him on it. I mean, clearly the position from the DUP is until we get somewhere on the protocol, we're not prepared to take any other action. Now, how long he can continue on in that vein is debatable, because come Monday, the MLAs will be signing the register. We will know the numbers. They'll want to know where things go from here. What you could be looking at, if they manage to elect a speaker, it could be that Sir Geoffrey Donaldson will try to continue on in the vein that we're in at the moment, where we would have caretaker ministers with an operating assembly. They might not be able to take any strategic decisions, but at least you would have the veneer, the appearance of a working government. That might buy him time while he tries to get something out of the British government.
How close to reality is Sir Geoffrey Donaldson on this, Anna?
Oh, I think it's quite hard to listen to in some ways, because I mean, Brexit doesn't seem to have been a great idea at the start, and now we're at the stage. We went through years of trying to get the protocol just right. All the parties in the executive agree that it's not perfect, but it's the best we managed to do. I mean, my concern is that, you know, if we just keep digging, it's going to get worse. I mean, Theresa May's deal were probably in a better deal, but they held out for Boris Johnson's, and they didn't like it either. So what exactly does success look like in this? We are where we are. The referendum's happened, and it's I don't think there is a perfect solution ready to go. I mean, it struck me that it was kind of, you know, the responsibility of others in doing different things in this whole situation. But ultimately, you know, the DUP hold a lot more power than they're letting on. Yes, the UK government can do different things, but ultimately there's people here that.
Well, how much power, Alex Keane, does the DUP have then?
It doesn't have much, because it's now reliant. I mean, Jeffrey's made a speech back in September last year in which he said if the Johnson didn't sort this out, he would bring the executive down, and Johnson did nothing, which is why he had to, you know, withdraw Paul Givan. He's relying now on, I mean, it was Lord Frost, it was Liz Truss, now he's relying on the Queen's speech. I expect what he's going to get is some form of jibber-jabber, which the government will think will do it. But one of the things that matter here, 2 things maybe. Jeffrey's problem is that the unionist section of the pro-union family, which was ambiguous on the protocol, took a massive hit today. So Geoffrey will know that if he wants to keep his own party and whatever's coming in terms of the numbers of the TUV on board, he's going to have to be very careful in that. But there's another thing, and maybe the government will ask him this. Geoffrey's saying, we say to you, this is something with the protocol. Could you accept that? And he says, we could accept that. And then the government says, the next question, on that basis, would you go in and serve as Deputy First Minister to a Sinn Féin First Minister? That answer wasn't clear. He could have said at some point, look, if we get what we want in the protocol, then yes, of course, we know what the rules were. We will abide by the rules. That was very unclear. Now, I don't know whether he's just playing the long game. Tomorrow...
Well, it's because the final figures aren't in.
Yeah. I think, well, OK, the final figures aren't in, but he can avoid the question today, he can probably avoid the question tonight, but at some stage tomorrow, if it's declared that Sinn Féin is the largest party, Geoffrey, whatever he thinks of the protocol, whatever he thinks of anything else, he will have to answer that question. If you're happy with the protocol, will you serve? Because there are sections of unionism in that assembly right now, will be from Monday, who do not want him to serve under any circumstances.
So he is in between a rock and a hard place here, isn't he?
Well, if you look at the results of what's come out of Lagan Valley, even within his own constituency, the TUV candidate scored over 3,000 votes. That's 3,000 people living in Geoffrey Donaldson's back garden who clearly believe that the protocol has to be sorted out. Now, Jim Allister, well, his tail's going to be up after today. He's going to be saying to Geoffrey Donaldson, you stood on a podium with me and you said that you're not going to do anything in the protocol, you're going to get rid of the protocol, and you can bet your bottom dollar that he will hold the DUP's feet to the fire on that one.
Well, we're now able to join Gareth Wilkinson, who's about to talk to Conor Murphy at his count. And I hope that, Gareth, you were able to hear what was being said in the studio here following that interview that we just did there with Sir Geoffrey Donaldson. Over to you for now.
It's probably right. I'm joined here by Sinn Féin's Conor Murphy. Conor, first and foremost, we'll talk about your own constituency there, how things are going in Newry and Armagh. You're looking like you'll get 3 over the line.
Well, it looks positive. I'm told by those who've been watching the ballots getting counted that we could well come in first, second and third in terms of the first preferences and not that far off the quota. So that's a healthy return, and something obviously we're very pleased about and very thankful to the electorate for.
We also saw Michelle O'Neill here get across the line. Do you think that Michelle O'Neill is on course to be First Minister? And we've just spoken to Geoffrey Donaldson, and he still refused to say whether or not he would agree to Sinn Féin becoming First Minister. Are we hurtling towards a crisis here?
Well, it's not up to him to decide whether Sinn Féin become the First Minister or not. It'll be up to the electorate, and they've already had their say on this issue yesterday. Of course, there's a lot of votes to be counted yet. There are a lot of preferences to be shared out and seats to be allocated. So it's very early days for that. I have to say, we fought a very positive campaign. Our message was that we wanted to fix the things that needed fixed in terms of health service, cost of living crisis. We want to be in Stormont on Monday. We want to be working with other parties. The electorate decide the positions. It won't be the DUP or anyone else. And the DUP need to be in there with the rest of us. If they have a 5-point plan, which they were telling us they want to see implemented, they need to be in working with the rest of us on Monday.
Geoffrey Donaldson says he wants to see some movement on the protocol. What happens if that doesn't?
Well, as we've been saying all along, the protocol issues are being resolved by the EU and the British government. They're not being resolved around the executive table. And to stop the executive functions that the DUP have been doing for the last couple of months, to stop the North-South Ministerial Council functioning as they've been doing since the autumn, is only punishing the people that we collectively represent, the people who came out to vote yesterday. So, of course, protocol issues need to be resolved, but they're resolved in another forum. They're not resolved around the executive table. There are people here today and tomorrow are worrying about heating their homes, they're worrying about putting food on their table, and we have money that we need to allocate to try and support them, and the DUP need to get in with the rest of us and do that work.
Yeah, but what happens if that progress doesn't happen? Are we into talks process, or are we into another crisis? Are we hurtling towards a crisis?
Well, there is no need to be another crisis. As I say, there is a forum for resolving the issues in relation to the protocol. The British government and the EU are resolving those issues. The executive needs to get on with its work. And so there is no need for a crisis. The DUP's protest is futile. It's having absolutely no impact whatsoever, and you can see that from Brandon Lewis's remarks the other evening. It's having no impact whatsoever, and the only people they're punishing by stopping the executive work are the people that we represent, the people who need the support of the executive to help them through their everyday existence.
Well, is there something that Sinn Féin can do to help the DUP? Because DUP obviously have these huge concerns around the protocol. They've said that they haven't been listened to. What can Sinn Féin do to help the DUP? Will you wait for the DUP?
Well, firstly, the protocol is a consequence of Brexit. The DUP campaigned for the hardest possible Brexit they could get. They prevented the previous British government from making an agreement with the EU seeking a hard Brexit. So they are now reaping what they've sowed. And of course, we want to see arrangements work. We didn't want to leave the European Union. We want to see the arrangements are put in place to mitigate against the outcome of that, working as effectively as they can. But we can't resolve these issues. The DUP have been heard loud and clear by everybody. The people who it mattered are the electorate, and they've had their say yesterday, and we're going to see what the result of that is today. So the DUP have been heard. They presented their case to the people. What clearly the people are saying, from what I could see in terms of early results, is get back in there, get around the table with all the parties and get back to work. And that's what Sinn Féin are prepared to do.
Conor Murphy, thank you very much.
Well, it's Gareth Wilkinson there speaking to Conor Murphy at his count. Tracy, what do you make of that?
Well, I think that's more of the same from Sinn Féin. They are very much taking the attitude, we fought a positive campaign, everybody knew what we stand for, and now the electorate has backed us. And clearly they know that they can sit where they are and let Sir Geoffrey Donaldson struggle, if you like, because he's the person that has to find the answers to the questions that you pose to him. For Sinn Féin, they can say, you know, we made our case, the electorate has backed us, we are now, well, certainly at this moment in time, it looks like they're going to be the largest party. Over to you, Sir Geoffrey, what next?
And what next for Geoffrey Donaldson then?
Well, he has a bit of time. So the Assembly has to meet within the next 8 days to appoint a Speaker and potentially ministers. But legislation passed at Westminster in recent months allows that to extend to up to 6 months. So there is a bit of space and a bit of time there. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because I think we previously had 2 weeks to form an executive. That's 5 parties previously going into government. You know, in the Republic of Ireland, it took 4 months to form a coalition government. So it's something that we should give space and time to consider. But I think that Jeffrey needs to think about what his next moves are. I mean, a lot of the time it's felt quite reactive. What is the longer term game plan? What is the proactive approach? I mean, there's things, you know, we're talking about the protocol and about the outworkings of Brexit. In New Decade New Approach, there was a commitment to a subcommittee on Brexit to set that up within the Assembly. That hasn't happened. I mean, there's been opportunities to deliver these things and to have these conversations. So, you know, we don't want to just create and manufacture another crisis built out of something that we did see coming. So it's about solutions. And
what are the options facing Jeffrey Donaldson then, Alex?
Well, I wouldn't disagree with what Anna's saying, but I think there's another point I think worth making on the back of what Conor was saying there. It's almost too easy for Sinn Féin to keep saying you reap what you sow. You know, the reality is that at the end of today or tomorrow, we will see there'll be probably 40 unionists in that assembly. Those 40 unions, not one of those 40 unions, I suspect, would say I have no trouble with the protocol. They all have problems with the protocol. And it might help, maybe a bold move to even suggest this, but it might help if Sinn Féin and the DUP and maybe the other executive party sat down below the radar and said, is there some way? Go back to August 2016 when Arlene and Martin McGuinness wrote their joint letter, which was a good letter. It looked, I mean, everyone thought this can work, we can do this. And then it all fell apart. The DUP went uber unionist. That's where they need to get back to, Paul, because you can, Jeffrey's right, but so is God. You cannot work Northern Ireland or Northern Ireland executive where if one community says we are unhappy, you need to find ways to reconcile, because if you don't,
another point that has to be made is, yes, Sinn Féin can sit back to a certain degree, but they want back into government. Yes. They know that the electorate is tired of this. They want to see their politicians working. So there is a degree of pressure on them to try to find a way back in.
It's 4:20 this Friday afternoon. There's the state of the parties as we are on air. And it is 2 to the DUP, 7 to Sinn Féin. The Ulster Unionists and the SLP and TUV haven't had any returns yet, and Alliance have 2. So that's the state of play at this stage on Friday afternoon. We'll have more results coming your way after this break, so do stay with us.
With O2, save up to £200 on the epic Samsung Galaxy S22. From under £25 a month when you trade in. Plus, roam freely. We're not bringing back EU roaming charges for anyone. Get your Samsung Galaxy S22 today. We're better connected. Search O2 Samsung.
Something unexpected has come to Prime. Something unusual, unprecedented and undeniable, tantalizing and thrilling. Something jaw-droppingly fast and mouth-wateringly fresh. Presenting groceries. Same-day delivery at no extra cost. Mind blown. Prime changes everything.
Teaching your kids about money. Now that's an important life skill.
Parents, meet GoHenry, the ultimate kids prepaid debit card and financial education app
that helps you teach your kids healthy money habits. They can customise their cards and start learning. You can set up chores and pay them in a tap.
With tools to teach your kids how to earn, save, spend, and give responsibly. Join for free at GoHenry.com. GoHenry, making every kid smart with money.
CFC Interior's massive stock disposal sale is now on. With £1.5 million worth of stock being cleared, everything is reduced. With up to 75% off across all departments, you don't want to miss this. CFC Interiors, Cookstown, Campsie and Abbey Centre. Stock disposal sale now on.
It feels so good being surrounded by nature.
Introducing Airwick's latest range of scented oil warmers, infused with pure essential oils and more naturally derived ingredients. So you can bring a little bit of nature home with up to 100 days of amazing natural fragrance. Airwick, let nature lift you.
Paddy Power love bingo! That's why every 20 seconds we make someone a winner. Yes. Now let's play bingo Paddy Power style. How about number 4, Wags at War? Number 30, dance partners getting flirty. 5 and 4, tied once more. But we wouldn't change everything. 22, 2 little ducks. Classic. Someone wins every 20 seconds. Paddy Power bingo.
Freshly ground Arabica beans, organic milk, a white coffee, just 99p.
Unbelievable.
Hey, Carolyn. It's time.
What?
It's time we did this. But I don't know how to start a business.
Just call Go For It. They'll arrange a meeting with a business advisor who will help you develop a business plan, support and mentor you to get started.
Okay, let's do this.
Whatever your business idea or dream, we can help you get it going. Call us on 0800 027 0639 or visit goforitni.com today.
Join us as we celebrate 70 incredible years of Her Majesty the Queen. A one-off live spectacular with show-stopping performances. Celebrate our Queen of many generations. The Queen's Platinum Jubilee Celebration, Sunday the 15th of May at 8 on ITV and ITV Hub.
Good afternoon once again. You're watching Vote 22 here on UTV as we bring you extended coverage of the results in the Assembly election. It's just coming up to 4:25 now, and these are the headlines so far, with a small number of candidates now on their way to Stormont. And in the last half hour, the DUP leader, Sir Jeffrey Donaldson, has secured his seat in Lagan Valley, but continues to call on the UK government to resolve issues with the Northern Ireland Protocol before his party will enter an executive. Sinn Féin Vice President Michelle O'Neill is re-elected and hopes for an historic victory, with 7 seats secured so far. And Alliance leader Naomi Long has returned in East Belfast with hopes of a surge. So that's the situation. The headlines this afternoon. We're just hearing that Sinead Ennis has been re-elected with a massive vote in South Down, 14,381 first preference votes. So that must be way ahead of the quota. And Cathy Mason, I'm told, is second for Sinn Féin. She has been re-elected with just over 9,000 votes. So a stunning result there for Sinn Féin in South Down. We've just taking note of there with those figures. How's it going? And we're just hearing that Alliance are in third position.
Oh, South Down was one of those seats that we were going to be interested in because it looked like seats could change hands, and particularly, of course, the 5th seat. And the SDLP look like they're in trouble in South Down. Their candidate looks as if she really is in trouble.
Those are live pictures there from the South Down constituency. We're just hearing now that there's a declaration coming for North Antrim, I believe. North Antrim. Let's hear it.
Candidate was as follows. Keely Armstrong, Alliance Party, 7,015, 701.
Sorry, that is not North Antrim. That's a previous recording. So let's just stick with where we are right now, Deirdre. You were saying.
Well, I think in South Down, Sinn Féin will be delighted. I mean, those are stunning figures, and they will. I think they were quietly confident. It's the SDLP who will be worried about South Down. I think they will be looking at a loss there, and what does it mean for them? Because traditionally, it was SDLP country. It's Eddie McGrady's seat at a time, Westminster seat. So I think they will really have to regroup and ask themselves what on earth has gone wrong for them. But I think it is fair to say that Sinn Féin ran a positive campaign, and they will be delighted with the results so far. Of course, we keep having to say that it's early days, but certainly their campaign appears to have resonated with the public.
But it's very clear that Sinn Féin speaks for the nationalist electorate.
Well, I think the fact, and we heard it there again, that Jeffrey Donaldson will not commit to serving alongside a nationalist First Minister galvanised the nationalist community, alongside the fact that Sinn Féin ran a positive campaign and also ran a campaign along bread and butter issues, talked about changing the health service, talked about the cost of living crisis, which again really resonated
reference to a
with the
border
public.
poll.
No reference to a border poll. But of course, why would they? It's a raison d'etre. They don't have to raise it. People know that Sinn Féin, their ultimate aim is reunification. But what they're saying is, we're not saying that it's going to happen in the morning. We've learned from Brexit. What do we learn? We don't want to jump into the unknown. And also remembering that the public have been through Brexit, toxic Brexit negotiations. We've been through COVID-19. There's a war in Ukraine. So do we really think there's an appetite for constitutional
This is the certainty that the electorate is voting for in that case?
I think there's two things here. Republicanism, if we count Sinn Féin as Republicans, this is just the day, isn't it? You know, 100 years and you're going to be top of the pile, you're going to be the First Minister, and that's exactly it. If we count the SDLP as nationalism, this is a bad day. So there's something about that term nationalist that doesn't really mean the same anymore. Republicanism very strong, SDLP now looking weaker. The same on the unionist side, but what's happened there is the DUP, who once were like the equivalent of Sinn Féin.
Are these votes being lent to Sinn Féin?
No, I don't think so. I think there's a changing demography. I think there's lots of people who've grown up and understand Sinn Féin as a social democratic party, don't understand it the way our generation would have understood Sinn Féin and what their past was. I think clearly they ran a very clever campaign, which we talked about forward, of near silence. And they allowed the DUP to rabble-rouse, and they allowed the DUP to show an anger, which only made them more confident that their vote was worthwhile, that there was something to oppose. And I think also what has happened is just slowly over time they've had no opposition within the Catholic nationalist community because the SDLP's collapsed.
We're just hearing that Sinn Féin have done very well in Foyle. That's just coming through to us now.
Oh, and that is interesting again, because even though they didn't say it, they're quite worried about those candidates. Those two candidates, while yes, you might say they took action in Foyle, but those two candidates are quite low profile. They're not well known. But there was always a view that Sinn Féin would get two candidates over the line, and that the SDLP were optimistic in terms of putting forward three candidates. But across the piece, Sinn Féin will be happy, and they will, you know, you could argue that, of course, the DUP did their job for them. But also, I think they will say, we put forward a positive, optimistic campaign, and that has played off.
This is the cradle of the SDLP, is Foyle.
Yeah.
And, you know, you'd have thought, certainly Colm Eastwood would have thought that, you know, there was some way back for them, but it hasn't happened yet.
I'd be interested to see how the unionist vote has gone, because that in itself will tell the tale. Just to go back to South Down, here's an answer to a question we were posing throughout the campaign. Diane Forsyth for the DUP, she has come in with 6,497. Now, Harold McKee, who of course got the backing of Jim Wells, has he left the DUP? He has scored 3,273 in that campaign. Now, the DUP, I think, certainly in headquarters, they will be very relieved about that. Moving on to Foyle then, the question is, can Gary Middleton hold on? I was hearing quite pessimistic noises from the DUP this morning. It seems like a lifetime ago now. It seems that Ryan McCready has run quite a good campaign and has scored well. So it seems like Sinn Féin, after all the negative headlines, have managed to get their two in. Can Sinn Féin, or can the SDLP then benefit from a split unionist vote and find themselves in a fight potentially for that third seat?
Look, for Sinn Féin, it came up in that interview you had with Jeffrey Donaldson. The protocol is a disaster for unionism. It is constant. You talk about people painting themselves into a corner, but to keep doing it, to ally yourself to like the surveys we have done with the Irish News, it's only 12% of unionists who have it as a priority. You know, how do you motivate an election around an issue which is down the list of concerns for the community who you aim to represent? Constantly showing yourself as weak with regard to the British government, relying on the British government, who are perfidious in all the things they've done with unionism with regard to the Brexit as they would understand it, to run a campaign on something which is not at the core of what people are thinking about. And what it also illustrates is, and I keep saying this point, it's clear that significant sections of the unionist community will not vote to keep the other side out. So when the question you asked Jeffrey Donaldson about Monday, the question for unionism is, can you get in touch with a community that you're increasingly representing less? The majority of pro-union people support marriage equality. The majority of pro-union people support the right of women to control their bodies. Okay. You have a political party which doesn't even represent the majority of its own people.
We're just getting some live pictures in at the moment from the North Antrim count. They are telling us that a declaration is imminent. But those are the pictures there for the North Antrim constituency. Jim Allister there, Robin Swan in the picture as well. So we're just awaiting the confirmation and the announcement from the Deputy Returning Officer. They're standing there and just waiting for that. Picture the TUV in all of this. What do you think they will make of what is going on here right now?
Well, they'll see the DUP as weak. They'll see that they've achieved something that they never imagined achieving. This is their moment. And of course, the power and the influence that they're going to gain by getting a bigger vote, whether they get extra seats or not, is debatable. But it proves to them that there is a vote out there for them. It gives them a legitimacy within the unionist community that they've never had before.
Who is voting for the TUV?
Well, disgruntled DUP voters, people who, a mixture of people who really are exercised about the protocol, people who feel that the DUP is out of touch, the Alex Easton proof, you know, I left the DUP, I got a bigger vote, okay? People who see the DUP as toxic, but clearly people who are more on the evangelical end of unionism.
But that's not a growing vote, is it?
No. It's not a growing demography, but it still has quite a lot of capacity, as is shown in Strangford. You know, a very significant vote out of nothing.
And also it does seem to bear out, maybe not completely what the polls were showing, but that the DUP vote is being salami sliced. On the one side it is going to that more hardline fundamentalist side on the TUV. On the other side it would appear that the vote is going towards the Alliance, because the Ulster Unionists don't appear to be able to catch that vote. For the DUP it means they are
sorry, I need to cut across. I think we're able to go to North Antrim now for the result there, which is imminent. North Antrim.
Ulster Unionist Party, 856. 856. Free, Paul, Democratic Unionist Party, DUP, 6,242. 6242. The Gligan, Philip, Sinn Féin, 9,348. 9348. Olin, Patricia, Alliance Party, 4,810. 4810. Reid, Eugene, SDLP, Social Democratic and Labour Party, 1,919. 1919. Shingleton, Laird, Independent, 66. 66. Story, Murden, Democratic Unionist Party, DUP, 6,747. 6747. Swan, Robin, Ulster Unionist Party, 9,530.
There is what we were waiting for there, the declaration from North Antrim. In case you didn't hear it, Jim Allister got 8,282 first preference votes there. Robin Swan, the outgoing Health Minister, 9,530. I'm told that is topping the poll in North Antrim as well.
I don't really think that's a surprise. I mean, Robin Swan has consistently been praised by even people from other parties over his handling of
Philip McGuigan is also elected.
Philip McGuigan, an excellent result for Sinn Féin yet again. In terms of Robin Swan, goes to show that no matter what, you can't buck the trend if you're popular with the voter. I think Jim Allister will be very pleased with his result. Maybe not the performance he would have wanted for his running mate, Matthew Armstrong.
Yeah, and Philip, as I said, Philip McGuigan has been elected on that first count as well in North Antrim for Sinn Féin. Well, I suppose, Deirdre Heaton, Robin Swan getting 9,530, it's an example of where an outgoing minister actually does do okay whenever it comes to the vote.
Well, I think, as Tracy said, Robin Swan has been widely praised for his role as Health Minister in a global pandemic. I think it has been accepted across the piece that he did a good job and that he is affable and likeable. And again, someone that when he stepped down as leader of the Ulster Unionist Party, people kind of thought that that was him and he would go off into the background. But he took the health ministry, and unbeknownst to him, along came COVID-19, and that has really brought him a personal vote.
It doesn't seem to have done the party much good elsewhere, does it?
No, but I think that's what we're seeing here today, that some people are bringing in a personal vote, a very personal vote. And as we discussed earlier, some people that really aren't that well known across the media, but someone like Robin Swan, people feel that he really did a good job, that he was under enormous pressure, and they want to reward him and they will give him a vote. And so it has transpired.
Will it be enough to bring in a second Ulster Unionist in North Antrim?
It looks very unlikely. And again, questions will be asked about the Ulster Unionist Party and their vote management and what has gone on, because it was widely predicted that he would do well, get over the line and bring a surplus. I don't know that they could have managed to get to there anyway. To be honest, I don't think it was there. But I think it shows again the importance of individual personalities and the fact that he has, I would imagine he has attracted votes across the piece.
Quite interesting too how the Alliance Party's Patricia O'Lynn has done 4,810 votes. Now, you would have to ask yourself, where are the transfers going to go? It would seem to me that she's going to benefit from the SDLP. You know, any spare votes that might be going from the Ulster Unionist Party may come her way too. It's not without hope there for the Alliance Party to maybe steal something.
Also, it's not exactly, but it's nearly a doubling of the vote.
Yeah.
In an area where the thing we have to remember about the Alliance Party is up until 2017, they averaged about 6%. We haven't been in one constituency yet where they're even anything like that, where they're much higher than that. And so this is a story.
We will be able to revisit this, but we're going to cross the studio now and rejoin Mark Mallet and Alan Meeben. Over to you guys.
Paul, thank you. Yes, thank you very much indeed. Just picking up on a conversation, of course, that they were having at the other side of the studio, Alan. Once upon a time, SDLP voters just wouldn't have contemplated lending their vote to Sinn Féin. But just looking at some of the figures, likes of North Belfast, Sinn Féin up 5.6, SDLP down 5.4. I mean, it seems that is the case. That's what's happening here.
Yeah, it looks like kind of within nationalism, they're kind of eating each other's votes, and it's just kind of spreading from one to the other. I mean, I guess that's because a lot of the kind of past terrorist links with Sinn Féin have gone. Maybe nationalists wider kind of feel that it's a party of new people, and they're willing to go for it. I think also there's something about the Sinn Féin didn't make a big play for the fact that they wanted a big vote, and there might be some kind of border poll apparently that they'd be kind of keen on, that they kind of played that down. But I think that through the media, through the unionist parties, everybody knew that was something, and people are kind of, whether they're lending their vote this time or whether it's a permanent gain, and we'll find out in 3 or 4 or 5 years' time. But there's definitely a big move, and that is really hurting the SDLP today.
Well, with first preference votes in from more than half of the constituencies, Alliance vote is up so far, 6.6 percentage points. Sinn Féin up, SDLP down, DUP down, UUP down, and TUV up. Nationalist parties eating each other. DUP swapping with the TUV, UUP probably leaking to Alliance. That's sort of what we're seeing here right across the board, isn't it?
I think so. It's hard to look at the actual stats and know for sure that it's DUP voters who went to the TUV, but it kind of appears about the right proportions, that it's kind of where the DUP are down, the TUV are up. And interesting, kind of even with Alliance and the Greens, it appears that the Alliance are eating their Greens a bit like their parents told them to when they were boys and girls. So that also is a thing. Even though the Green vote is actually up in Northern Ireland, they're running candidates in all the places. They did that the last time, but actually their vote is still increased in the constituencies that we have declared so far for first preferences. So it's a kind of a good day for the Greens, but probably there are going to be a lot of tears before bedtime.
I suppose that's the problem of basically spreading yourself so far and wide, trying to stand in all constituencies or as many as possible.
Yeah, but it'll be disappointing for them because their overall support is growing, but they're potentially, we predict at this point that they will probably lose some of their seats. So they will have less representation, but actually more support. But that's the joy of an STV system and an election like this.
So what we talked about there, obviously, the change in the nationalist side, the change in the union side. With regards to what's happening in the others there, Kelly Armstrong was first elected. She was reluctant to talk about, she talked about this being the Alliance surge, but reluctant to mention a tidal wave as such. But that surge is certainly eliminating a lot of those that are in the other section.
Yeah, I think, Alliance are really consolidating that kind of other vote, and they're obviously bringing new people into it. There'll be an interesting discussion perhaps at the other end of the studio at some point around what happens if you do get the Assembly back, what happens to cross-community voting. Even
big Naomi's hand to push for change there.
I think even for the DUP, it may go into some of their negotiations to kind of widen out what you're going to do to get an executive back. Can we talk about cross-community voting and what that means when you have a solid 20% maybe of the MLAs?
And just picking up on what Sir Geoffrey Donaldson was saying in his interview with Paul there a short while ago. He's made it pretty clear that he wants to see the protocol issues sorted. But we could be looking at a situation where the majority of the electorate in Northern Ireland is backing parties who want to see just the protocol issue put to bed and to get on with it.
Yeah, and we've seen all along through some of the opinion polls and things that have asked people what are the most important issues. The most important issues were things around the economy, around health, around recovery from COVID, maybe even around education, but the protocol was kind of well down. However, I would maybe say that if you asked a different question and said, what are the issues that would make you vote for somebody? It's probably not the economy or health, except in Robin Swan's case, who's done very well, but actually it probably things like the protocol, which are kind of proxies for kind of what we might call kind of red, white and blue, green, white and gold kind of issues. Those proxies might actually still be very important to people.
And throw into the mix, of course, that Boris Johnson might not have had as good a night as he had hoped for in the council elections. It will be interesting to see what sort of chat there is between Sir Geoffrey Donaldson and Boris Johnson.
And whether Boris Johnson continues to be the person that he needs to chat to. If they get a really bad night for the Tories, that could have repercussions. The dominoes could fall, and actually the DUP's play out of this may be very different.
We'll wait and see.
Yeah.
Alan, for now, thank you. Paul.
Mark and Alan, thank you both very much indeed. So what is happening in the council in Strangford and Southdown? We do know that we've had declarations there, but Deborah McAleese is there for us at the moment. So Deborah, let's start with Strangford and just bring us up to date with the latest there, please.
Well, I think from early morning, Paul, we knew that Kelly Armstrong was going to do well, but I think even she was surprised at just how well she did, topping the poll there. She said, I spoke to her just a short time ago, and she said that she is feeling pretty shell-shocked. But also polling pretty strongly is the TUV's Stephen Cooper. And that means that the DUP's third seat is in difficulty. So it looks like the DUP are going to lose a third seat. Now, Michelle McIlveen is very safe at the minute, but Peter Weir is feeling very despondent. It looks like Harry Harvey could get that second DUP seat. So that means that the last battle for the seat there is likely to be between Mike Nesbitt and Nick Matheson. So he is Kelly Armstrong's running mate. Kelly Armstrong seems to think that he is in with a really good chance. So that could be two alliance seats in Strangford. But, it is still early days. Strangford is known to take quite a while to count.
We've also had a declaration from Southdown. So bring us up to date with the situation in that constituency.
Well, there is a real party mood here with Sinn Féin. I mean, they knew that they were going to do really well in Southdown, but I think the votes that they got, even they were very surprised. Cathy Mason and Sinead Ennis. But Patrick Brown of the Alliance Party, he is also polling very strongly. So it looks like he could take a seat from the SDLP. And the Unionist seat then in Southdown. Well, as you know, there was a very messy DUP campaign there whenever the DUP deselected Jim Wells, and the councillor Diane Forsyth, well, she bested Edwin Poots for the nomination there, and Diane Forsyth, she is polling very well, so it looks that like the Unionist seat will go to her.
OK, Deborah, thank you very much indeed for bringing us up to date with that there. It's time for a short break, but please do stay with us. We will be back again shortly. Thanks.
Imagine me and you, I do. I think about you day and night. It's only right.
Not all hybrids are born equal.
So happy together.
Toyota CHR self-charging hybrid. Hello, hybrid happiness.
broadband like a pro with Virgin Media's lightning fast M100 broadband, with the price frozen at just £28 a month for 18 months. Visit virginmedia.com.
My Perfect Eyes is now 50% off at Lloyd's Pharmacy. My Perfect Eyes reduces the appearance of those unwanted wrinkles, bags and dark circles. Right now it's 50% off along with the entire My Perfect range online or at your local Lloyd's Pharmacy.
David Nieper. Exclusive designs, beautifully made in England. Shop today at davidnieper.co.uk.
A delivery driver finds a lift is out of order.
What? Sorry, mate.
Looks heavy.
The driver has to hump a large, awkward, heavy package up to the 10th floor of a tower block.
Delivery.
This says block 2. It's over there, mate.
Should have gone to Specsavers. Specsavers.
For Amy, this t-shirt isn't just a t-shirt. It's a I'm still rock and roll really t-shirt. And now she can protect it with Comfort's Ultimate Care. Its pro-fibre technology keeps clothes fragrant and looking like new. We can't promise a rock and roll lifestyle will last, but the t-shirt will. Comfort Ultimate Care. Long live clothes.
What are you doing?
Sandwiches. Are you crisp in or crisp out?
My Perfect Eyes is now 50% off at Lloyd's Pharmacy. My Perfect Eyes reduces the appearance of those unwanted wrinkles, bags and dark circles. Right now it's 50% off along with the entire My Perfect range online or at your local Lloyd's Pharmacy.
For over 40 years, we've helped people invest for a better future. Switch your money on with Hargreaves Lansdowne.
I'm Siobhan. I've just recently moved back from London, and I'm an alcoholic. Dad! There are things going on in this family that need to be confronted.
Sure this is the right place for you to stay sober?
The Dry, streaming now, only on BritBox.
Hello once again, you're watching Vote 22 live on UTV this Friday afternoon. Now, more than a dozen seats have been declared so far. Sinn Féin have 10, Alliance and the DUP have 2 each. Robin Swan has been elected for the Ulster Unionist Party. The DUP leader, Sir Geoffrey Donaldson, secured his seat in Lagan Valley, but he has continued to call on the UK government to resolve issues with the Northern Ireland Protocol before his party will enter an executive. I spoke to him a short time ago. Sir Geoffrey, are you seriously saying to me that you wouldn't go back into government with the country in crisis unless you have word about the removal of the protocol? Are you saying that to me?
Paul, I'm seriously saying to you that I gave a commitment to the people of Northern Ireland in the election. If you're asking me now, after the election, to break that commitment, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to do that. My commitment was clear. I want the protocol sorted out. I sought a mandate for that. And we will pursue that. I want to see it. I'm not going to be like others, pretending there isn't a problem. What
does sorted out mean? What does sorted out mean here? What is the least that you would settle for?
I want to see an outcome where we can trade freely with the rest of the United Kingdom. The goods that are moving from Great Britain to Northern Ireland and staying within the United Kingdom internal market should not be subject to checks. And that's what the government stated they would do in the New Decade New Approach Agreement. They gave a commitment to protect Northern Ireland's place within the UK internal market. That was the basis upon which we re-entered the executive back at the beginning of 2020. The government has not honoured that commitment. Look, I recognise, Paul, and we will do everything in our power to work with the other parties.
That was Jeffrey Donaldson, the leader of the DUP, talking to me a short time ago there after his declaration in Lagan Valley. We've got some breaking news. Roy Beggs, I'm told, has been excluded. He's the Ulster Unionist outgoing MLA for East Antrim, has been excluded after the first count, during which nobody actually reached the quota. And Roy Beggs he received 3,500 votes. His father was the MP.
Yeah, this is a blow for not only for Roy Beggs personally, but for the party, and this could be another high-profile casualty. And when I say high-profile, Roy Beggs is one of those politicians. You wouldn't have seen the party putting him out to make statements, but he's always been there. He's been a stalwart of the party, Deputy Speaker in Stormont. That is a loss for them. And also interesting the fact that John Stewart, he was the person who came in. He was the second candidate, a surprise election last time out. He's the candidate most likely to stay.
For the Ulster Unionists to go out in the first round in a predominantly Unionist area is... It really, I'm sorry, that tells you very much about what's happening today.
Well, it means, there is only going to be one Ulster Unionist seat now in East Antrim.
It does.
So where does that extra seat go?
Well, I think John Stewart's going to benefit, but I also think Alliance are going to benefit at the expense here of the loss of the UUP. And yes, again, it goes back to the UUP strategy. I would say he is fairly high profile, Roy Beggs. He's well known. He was well known in terms of health and quite a good media performer.
And he was his father's son too.
He was indeed. So it is a surprise that John Stewart's going to come in ahead of him.
I'm told that Roy Beggs is not doing any media at the moment. But just before we do that, I need to go to another breaking story we're getting in the constituency of Foyle. Mark McFadden's there. Mark, what do you have to tell us about Ryan McCready, the Ulster Unionist candidate in that constituency, please?
Well, Paul, interesting developments just within the last few minutes. We've learned that Ryan McCready has officially asked for a recount of his first preference votes and the first preference votes that were cast for the DUP's Gary Middleton, who of course was an outgoing MLA, an incumbent. Now that gives an indication that the race for the Unionist representation of Foyle is very, very close. We haven't had a first preference declaration yet, but we're getting indications that both candidates are polled in the mid-3,000s, and there's just a few hundred between them. Now, it's obviously a lot of interest on that Unionist seat in Foyle because it's a constituency, as we've said earlier today, with an inbuilt nationalist majority. We're fairly confident that Sinn Féin will take 2 seats. The SDLP seem nailed on to take 1. The SDLP probably will take the 4th seat. It'll be a tight squeak, but that 5th seat, it's going to be a real battle between the Ulster Unionists and the DUP. And this recount is giving us an indication that it's on a knife edge because the transfers between other parties could really decide if the Foyle constituency, if the city of Derry will have a Unionist seat in Stormont.
Mark McFadden, thank you very much indeed, and we're analysing that at this point. Is it possible that the 2 Unionist candidates could cancel each other out?
Very possible. If you look at Gary Middleton's vote back in the 2017 Assembly election, it was just under 6,000 votes. Now, Mark is saying that both candidates have scored in the mid-3,000s, so it looks like that vote has split. Now, the question would be, do they cancel one another out, and then as a result, then a Unionist loses that seat? And is there anything in that for the SDLP? Are trying to get us in?
That he is 300 votes behind Gary Middleton on first preference, and that's why he wants the recount. And of course, it is possible they could cancel themselves out.
So where do those votes go then?
But it doesn't, not necessarily. What it could be if they've transferred to each other.
Yeah.
As long as one of them hangs in, the vote will go
the
back.
Other will leapfrog.
And the TV, I'm sure there's a TV candidate there as well. That will come in as well. But it
what
depends how many people have voted Alliance.
But
that's
what is
the issue.
interesting is Ryan McCready has run a very high-profile campaign, calls himself an Instagram influencer. And is attracting votes.
We're going to that other constituency which is making the news this afternoon, and that is East Antrim. Eden Wilson is there for us at the moment. Eden Wilson, what more are you able to tell us about Roy Beggs?
Yes, Roy Beggs has been eliminated after the second count in East Antrim. A huge blow for the party, but obviously for him personally. He has represented East Antrim since 1998. That's a 24-year career in the area. Just a few moments ago, I was speaking to him. I asked if he'd come on, and he said he's not happy to do media right now, you know, respectively. But our conversation was mostly about, you know, what's next for Roy, and he says, look, I'm taking a couple of weeks here to digest this news, to let it sink in. This has obviously been his life for 24 years, and really he's thinking about what his next steps will be. But a huge blow for the Ulster Unionists in East Antrim. Conversely, John Stewart polling well, and there's an issue here, have they balanced the vote well? Probably not. So we'll be looking out to see how John Stewart fares. He's just slightly under in first preference votes to Gordon Lyons, and we'll be looking out to see what happens there in the next few moments.
The Unionist candidates in East Antrim constituency. If there is only one remaining, where is that other Ulster Unionist seat likely to go?
Well, yes, it looks likely that the Alliance Party might snap up that seat. Earlier when I spoke to the party, they say they're balancing their votes well, according to their tallies at least. First preferences are looking good too. So Danny Donnelly is looking to snap up that seat. He polled very well in the Westminster elections in 2019. The party don't want to, you know, they're hedging their bets, but they are quietly confident that he will be the second Alliance candidate in East Antrim.
OK, thank you very much indeed for that analysis, Eden Wilson. So the Alliance surge continues, Peter.
It does indeed, and we're just looking at the figures there. The thing is, they've really done their voting management very well.
They've been very good at this forever.
They're both just simply short. Beggs is out. His transfers will probably go to Stewart in the Ulster Unionist Party, but there will be people who voted Ulster Unionist who also would have transferred to the Alliance. So you'd say that's pretty good chance that they will get a second seat there.
Oh yes, I think they'll benefit at the expense of Roy Beggs. That's what it looks like.
But the other question is, East Antrim includes the Port of Larne, and it's in the maelstrom of the protocol protests that have been going on. Where are the TUV in that constituency?
So Norman Boyd has come in at 3,661. So he actually came in ahead of Roy Beggs.
He did.
You would have to say that it's not a bad result, I suppose, for the TUV, but given the fact that North Antrim has been the TUV heartland, you would imagine that East Antrim, South Antrim would have been doing better for the TUV. In fact, what we're seeing is that they're doing far better in the like of Strangford.
So what does that mean? What does the final shakedown look like then in East Antrim?
Well, it would look like the DUP are likely to retain their two. Gordon Lyons has actually outpolled David Hilditch this time. Their vote balancing isn't too bad, so you'd think it would be 2 DUP, 2 Alliance and 1 UUP.
I think it goes back to the earlier point about ministerial portfolios and having a public profile, and Gordon Lyons has a high public profile, and I think that is paying off for him.
And he gave us all £100.
And he
didn't do any harm.
Right? So if we're all going to vote for Robin Swan, we're going to thank Gordon for his £100. But he has a high profile, and he has been in the media quite a lot recently and had some very high profile people out campaigning with him, so I think that has paid off.
It's a bit early.
Can I just stop you there, because we're about to go to North Down. I believe we're now get to a declaration of the first count. There's Alex Easton there to the right, and we're hearing the declaration. Returning officer.
Candidate was as follows: Carter Chris, Independent, 72, 7-2. Chambers Alan, Ulster Unionist Party, 3,825, 3825. Dunn Stephen Gordon, Democratic Unionist Party, 6,226, 6226. Easton Alex, Independent, 9,568. Yeah! 9568. Egan Connie, Alliance, 5,224. 5,224. Gilmer Jennifer Mary, Democratic Unionist Party, 2,068.
Well done, Alex.
2068. Gordon John TV, no C border, 1,574. 1574. McBurney Naomi, Ulster Unionist Party, 1,342. 1342. McCartney Therese, Sinn Féin, 687. 687. McKim Ray, Independent, 604. 604. Muir Andrew, Alliance, 6,838. 6,838. Robinson Matthew, Conservative and Unionist Party, 254. 254. Vaughan Deirdre Maria, SDLP, Social Democratic and Labour Party, 727. 727. Woods Rachel Elizabeth, Green Party, Northern Ireland, 2,734. 2734. This is the announcement of the outcome of the first stage of the count for the North Down constituency. The total number
first declaration from North Down. Those figures are being digested by the panel in here. Let me start with you, Tracy.
Well, obviously an excellent result for Alex Easton. It was a risk. We didn't know how it was going to pay off, but it has come back with dividends, 9,568 votes. The DUP have done quite well there. Stephen Dunn, son of Gordon, the deceased MLA, he's done quite well. You think he probably is nailed on for a seat there. What's interesting too is the Alliance vote, Andrew Muir, 6,838. You would say,
but his running mate has done rather well too.
That's right.
Over 5,000.
That's right, and you would think then as it starts to come through, you would imagine that would be where they will pick up a seat. So yeah, they look quite good there, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I think I don't have the figures. The Green Party look under pressure.
And they're the ones that are going to lose here. So
Yeah.
that looks like an Alliance gain at a Green loss. But I don't have quota here, so I'm a bit hamstrung.
But it also goes back to the point that we made earlier, that standing aside really has not worked for these parties because they're struggling in North Belfast, South Belfast, North Down, and when they didn't have a presence, you know, now when it comes to the Assembly elections, they're really being squeezed by people who have built up a profile.
Can we just hear Alex Easton talking to some reporters at the count in North Down?
Delivering on the ground, and it's not an issue for me.
Alex, you're live on UTV. Did you give the DUP a bloody nose today?
I want the seat on the hard work that I do, and I'll be representing North Down as an independent MLA. That's my plan.
And you'll be staying as an independent?
That's my plan, to stay as an independent MLA.
Do you think did the DUP voters stay with you?
Sorry?
Did the DUP voters stay with you in North Down?
Well, I certainly took a lot with me.
Sir, you have 7-8 days to change your mind. You think you might be changed?
My plan is to stay as an independent MLA. Anyone else? Thank you.
Well, there we are. Alex Easton is keeping his cards very much to his chest there. He says his plan is to remain as an independent MLA. That may be his plan, but surely there will be approaches from a particular political party to get him to change his mind.
There's a very appropriate use of the word plan there. The word plan is purposeful. And of course, look, it only matters if they're on power. If the DUP are one behind Sinn Féin, that's where it only matters.
I think the difficulty will be, it's actually even if the difficulty would be if they are on par in seats, because if Alex Easton does redesignate as DUP, that would put the DUP one seat above Sinn Féin. But if they're below and they're just, if they're, say, 25, 24 and Alex Easton changes the DUP, come up to 25, then it goes to first preference votes. Alex Easton's votes don't count in that scenario. So in that scenario, then the Sinn Féin remain on top.
And another scenario here in North Down where two Ulster Unionist candidates have not delivered.
And again, it goes back to the vote management. And couldn't they have...
What made them think otherwise, then?
Well, what made them think it was a good idea in Fermanagh South Tyrone? What made them think it was a good idea in Strangford? What exactly were they trying to achieve? Because the important thing here is to work out what quota you have and make sure then that you attract your vote and you get people over the line. The worst possible outcome is to split your own vote, and it's not happened once. This looks like a repeating story, and it's very difficult to understand.
Well, indeed, why would the Ulster Unionist Party have done this?
I think because it was, as I said earlier on, hope springs eternal. I think they had this idea that there would be a bounce, that they were going to speak for. What we find in our research is there is a very socially liberal unionist community, but it doesn't vote, or it votes Alliance, or some of them vote for the Ulster Unionist Party. And I think they thought they could galvanise that, so they know something exists. It does exist. The type of voter they need to get exists. They just haven't had the message for it. But this again is East Antrim, which is really interesting. These are predominantly unionist communities, East Antrim and now North Down. We're getting exactly the same pattern. DUP have washed their face. They've kept their head above water, and the Alliance have taken over from the Ulster Unionist Party.
We know the total turnout, Tracy. Have we any idea of how that shakes down in terms of the different factions? Or is it too early to see that?
We know the total turnout. We don't know how it's going to turn out.
How it's broken down in terms of nationalists and Republicans, unionists, unionists.
I don't know. I don't think you would know at this stage. They would have to. Those figures would all have to be washed out. One point I would make on North Down: this is a bad day at the office for the Greens. At this moment in time, one half of their workforce looks like they're about to be made redundant, and also we're hearing that Alliance are not without hope for a second seat in South Belfast to try and take Claire Bailey's seat. Now, I wouldn't write Claire Bailey off. She's the fighter. She'll be in to the absolute death. But this could be an election where the Alliance Party just subsumes the Green Party vote. And I think this is also the story of this election campaign and something that we were talking about. There was a great deal of conversation around who's going to be the First Minister, who's going to be the top dog. There was a squeezed middle ground because it's very heavily populated.
We just need to park it there because we've got the leader of the Ulster Unionist Party, Doug Beattie, live. He's about to join us now. Doug Beattie, thank you very much indeed for talking to us. We've been talking about the fact that in certain constituencies, your party, has fielded two candidates. There wasn't even a quota for one. What went wrong here?
Well, we fielded two candidates where we thought one could support the other, and in many cases one has supported the other, and we're still fighting in a lot of the constituencies. This is still very early days yet. I mean, I'm sitting in the Macrofell Counting Centre, and the upper band first count hasn't even come out yet, so we've an awful long way to go yet. Paul, I wouldn't write things off. In some cases,
at this early stage, you must be gutted at the loss of Roy Beggs.
Of course I am. I'm gutted at the loss of Roy Beggs, because Roy Beggs is a friend of mine. He's a colleague, and he's been serving in the Assembly since 1998. So of course I am. And you know, when you lose somebody, it's never good. But our proportion of the vote has gone up from 22% to 24%. So there are some things in that we can take hard on, but there are also lessons that we need to learn and what we can do better to maybe make sure that vote management is done. So if somebody's asking me about one of my candidates leaving, then of course I'm going to be gutted about that.
But the question here is, what is the electorate? What message is being sent out by the electorate to your party here?
Well, listen. I mean, we'll see at the end of when all the votes have been counted in all of the constituencies, and we'll see what the message is going to be. But we are absolutely clear on what we're doing here. We know what we have to do, and we won't be distracted from doing that. Northern Ireland does deserve better. We need to be more confident. We need to be more positive. We need to be more optimistic, and we'll not be derailed from that. We are still fighting hard in Foyle, fighting hard in other constituencies. So I think people are maybe jumping a little bit too early in regards to this one. We'll keep fighting, and we won't be changing direction because eventually we are going to cut through, and people will understand that confident, positive unionism is the only way forward. And we still have to deal with that one hand behind our back that we still suffer from those who negotiated the St Andrews Agreement to say that if you don't vote for us, you'll get them. And that's always been an issue that we have faced in every election since then.
How can you say all that you have been saying when there are so many of your candidates at the moment who are in trouble simply because you ran two Ulster Unionist candidates in a constituency where actually one might have got through, but two won't?
But I've already answered that, Paul, and that is where in some cases we ran two, so one supports the other to broaden the appeal, and then with good vote management, transfer management, they should transfer their votes to the other candidate if they go out. So it's a well-known tactic to be able to do this in order to increase our vote and reach out to more and more people. So that's what we've been doing, and sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't work.
Well, let me ask you about your own count. Can I ask you about your own count in Upper Ban? How's that going?
I've no idea. Because we haven't had the first count yet, and we could all rely on tallies and say here's where we are in regards to the tallies, but until the first count comes in we don't know where we stand, and then we have lots of transfers to go around as well. We're running two candidates here. The two candidates here in Upper Ban again are supporting each other to try and maximise the Ulster Unionist Party vote and reach more people. It's a perfectly valid way of doing things, and we'll see what the count is, and then we'll see what way the transfers go. That's what's happening in many places right now, and it's still very early days here.
Doug Beattie, thank you very much indeed for the latest, and as Doug Beattie said, it is early days and not that many seats have been declared, but let's take a look at what we have so far, and this is the state of the parties. This Friday tea time, just coming up to 5:15, the DUP have 2 seats, Sinn Féin have 10, no seats for the Ulster Unionists nor the SDLP, Alliance have 2, and then there is one other. So that's the state of the party this Friday tea time. So Tracy McGee, what did you make of what Doug Beattie had to say there? Mindful that the cake is only so big.
Yes, I have to say that I thought his argument was weak. So he's saying that the reason why he put 2 candidates into constituencies was to support one another.